So this next session is going to be about Nutanix monitoring using Microsoft SCOM that Simon has so nicely introduced. My name is Bogdan Vir. I'm a lead product evangelist at Comtrade. And with me is going to be presenting today
Robert Cordini. I work for Nutanix Ready and Alliances, and I also am Microsoft MVP. And it's really great to see partners like Comtrade, invest in a SCOM management pack that really brings some benefits to our product and our solution.
So we are both techies, more or less. And,
exactly.
That's why we really enjoy this audience today. I already delivered a demo, I believe, of this product to a couple of you last week. So who is attending this demo, if you can just... Wonderful. So expect today a shorter version of this kind of insight into the product, but equally exciting. So today we plan to walk you through the first introducing Nutanix, right? For those of you, I'm sure all of you have already heard about it. And Robert is going to shortly introduce it again and just show the key workloads you can run on Nutanix. Then we are going to talk about monitoring, right? We'll switch tracks to Microsoft SCOM and how you can use it on top of and plug into it our management pack for SCOM, and then look at the Nutanix environment through SCOM eyes and support monitoring it through the standard IT processes. We'll cover this then afterwards through a few demos. We want to show the product in action, obviously, and we are going to show demos that cover hardware clusters, then storage layer, as well as virtual machines and application workloads you run on top of Nutanix. So this is going to be kind of the main part of the session today. Demos and absolutely questions are very welcome. So Robert,
awesome.
You want to talk about Nutanix a bit?
Sure. Well, if you're not familiar with Nutanix, Nutanix is about really bringing infrastructure invisible so we can kind of elevate and really concentrate on what's important, applications and services. And give you a brief introduction, it's really about converging that storage and compute layer and really providing a lot more closeness. And when you do that, you essentially bring a lot more scalability, the ability to, you're eliminating things like legacy architecture, like 3-tier, which essentially has, a lot of, data has gravity. And so when you have those type of architectures, you tend to not scale those very well. So what benefits of Nutanix is really about web scale architecture. All the intelligence is in this software, distributed everything, self-healing system, and automatic and rich analytics. Let's see here. So our key workloads, initially when Nutanix initially came kind of on the market, where one of our big key workloads was around VDI, but that's not where we stop. We essentially go across all the workloads, across all the stacks, whether it's Exchange, or a SQL Server, or UC with Skype for Business, etc. We were very pervasive across all those different workloads. So, and those workloads work very, very well on the Nutanix system, especially when you talk about, like, for example, Exchange, and you want to actually scale out and do essentially an environment so you don't have to purchase a large footprint, you can actually scale it as you need to. So that's essentially the benefits of the Nutanix Key Workloads. Any questions? Great. Morgan.
Thank you, Robert. So let's switch tracks now, right? We've seen what Nutanix does, where it's great. It's all about making storage much, much closer to the workloads, and then having all these workloads execute as efficiently as they can on Nutanix. But we know that you introduce this infrastructure to make applications work better, right? Applications are really the lifeblood of enterprises, and that's why we put all this technology in place so that companies can work and deliver value and grow. And with applications, it's so that lately, of course, we know they have to be available 24/7. They need to be available at all times on any device, any location. And in order to achieve that, you very often end up putting applications like in a sandwich between the network and security layer on top and then platform at the bottom, right? And network and security layer is enabling this always on, available everywhere on any device. It will also encrypt, decrypt the traffic. It will load balance access of business users. It's basically responsible for keeping the bad guys out and letting the good guys access the applications, right? And then, of course, you also need a compute and storage platform, and this is where Nutanix is so great about. And we end up with this three-tier kind of simplified architecture for delivering apps. Now, but we know this kind of introduces some complexity, and things sooner or later kind of break down, and you just need to be very, very effective in the IT to be able to detect things if they stopped working, or be able to prevent issues before they become problems for the organization. This is even more important, right? So you need, as an IT, a visibility across all of these layers to be able to be effective at achieving these.
And to add on to that, you also want to be able to not just, even though Nutanix has self-healing, you want to also understand how to scale. You want to understand how those loads work and actually when you need to plan going forward.
Correct. And so basically this brings us to the story with these management packs, right? We strongly believe IT needs this visibility, and we are enabling this visibility by covering some key technologies that are not covered by Microsoft SCOM, delivering the management packs to the market that enable customers to achieve that consolidated end-to-end view across the complete application stack so that IT can deliver the job of maintaining high levels of service for the applications. So let's zoom in a little bit into this SCOM/Nutanix setup that we want to talk about for the rest of the presentation. So on the left-hand side, you're able to see kind of Nutanix stack broken down in a couple of sub-levels, I like to call them. First is the hardware and cluster level, where you really are dealing with the metal, right? As well as the nodes, the servers that are delivering Nutanix functionality. They're kind of connected together in a bigger entity called the cluster, right? So this is kind of the first level functionality. Then on top of that, there's this storage and data protection layer where Nutanix really excels. It has some very, very smart technology, very smart software, delivering this storage from enterprise storage capabilities from local disks installed on every server, right? And then on top of that, of course, virtual machines and application of workloads running in those virtual machines. Now on the other side, you have IT teams that run Microsoft System Center, and they need visibility into the Nutanix. Now the way to achieve this visibility with Microsoft SCOM is that you plug into System Center Operations Manager the so-called management pack. So management pack contains knowledge and capabilities to reach out to the target technology that you want to monitor and bring it into SCOM and then visualize it in ways that monitoring teams are used to, right? So I'm basically translating, if you like, Nutanix specifics into the language of monitoring people that they understand and they work with every day. And then, of course, on top of that, you can do consolidation across other workloads that run on top of Nutanix, like with application management packs, like with network security level management packs, and really get this consolidated end-to-end view across this whole technology. So we'll jump right into use cases now, right? We want some action, we want some demos. And first, we are going to talk about monitoring of hardware and cluster level of the Nutanix environment. Again, of course, the management pack is going to be looking into these layers. And the things that are important on that level are, of course, how healthy is your hardware, right? Really, what is the internal temperature of the system, if you like? What is the health of disks? Are the SSDs, getting to some dangerous levels of wear? So basically, really the health of each individual node, plus how they collaborate with each other through this cluster concept. What is the load distribution? So is the system, certain system more overloaded than the others? Things like that are always interesting to know so that you can be proactive. And the demo that I'm going to deliver now is going to address one challenge, which is system temperature high, we like to call it, but you will see all the details in the demo. So I'm switching to Microsoft SCOM. This is running inside of our lab. And this is the typical SCOM console that every SCOM administrator knows. Just to give you a quick introduction into it. So in this bottom part, you have various...
Do you mind just moving your laptop a bit? Just to move from the screen, thanks.
Of course. Absolutely. Better, right? So on the left-hand side, you see the navigational pane, where you can switch between different contexts. You can look at information to the monitoring perspective, then you can do some authoring, reporting, administration. So this is where you switch context. And then most of the monitoring work is actually happening in the monitoring context, right? So this is where I'm actually at now. And once you install management packs inside of Microsoft SCOM, they start to appear in this navigational monitoring pane. Like in this case, the Nutanix management pack has its own entry and all the monitoring elements that are required and we are going to use for this purpose. One of the important visualization concepts in Microsoft SCOM is the so-called diagram view, right? It kind of breaks down the structure, the organization of the target environment for monitoring experts to be easier to understand for them. So in this case, what you see is we have two Nutanix clusters running in the environment, and if you expand each individual cluster, you are getting this internal cluster information. So the next level of a kind of cluster structure are the so-called Nutanix blocks, right? So this is block in Nutanix terminology is actually a chassis that can host up to 4 physical servers. And then you expand individual chassis and you get to the level of so-called hosts. And these hosts are basically the actual servers that we know, right? The physical machine that has CPU, memory, compute resources, disk resources, and so on. Now, in this topology, you also typically attach health indicators to every individual element. And this health indicator kind of summarizes the health state of this object. Like in this case, we see that there's apparently some kind of a serious problem with this particular host. Now, the way to drill down into this problem is, in SCOM terminology, you would launch the so-called Health Explorer. So the Health Explorer is basically a way to drill down into the detailed information about everything that is being monitored about this box. So like in this case, you see that a certain monitor that is attached to this element is saying that the system temperature is high. So Robert, just if you would see such an alert, system temperature high, what would typically be some of the things you would say Nutanix admin should maybe do next?
Look at? Yeah, and it's all about understanding correlation and really trying to get through the noise. As an IT pro, you know, it's a very complex, increasingly complex world with all the amount of applications and hybrid, et cetera. And there's a lot of noise out there, and be able to drill down in a very short and easy manner is exactly. Around, you know, this particular alert with system high alert, I would immediately say, okay, is there a fan gone in the system? Is there something that I have to have replaced? Is there a particular workload that maybe is causing a high CPU content? So there's a lot of different reasons, and actually having the ability to drill down and look at these correlations are very, very important. Sorry, guy, bed Bogdan.
Yeah, cool. Very nice. So basically, exactly that, right? So what we try to achieve with the management pack is also not to just tell you there's an issue, right? A certain type of an issue, but also how you go about fixing it, right? And in this case, Robert has mentioned, I would go check if fans are working, you know, if the airflow through the server is adequate so that, you know, the system is being cooled down. And this is exactly what we also provide in the so-called knowledge section of the management pack. So each type of an issue also gives you some pointers how to go about fixing it.
And having the remediation there right at your fingertips without having to click a few more is really, and it actually comes with our message where we're trying to be one click, you know, remediation. We have the ability to open up Health Explorer, look at something very quickly, and then even, you know, correlate from there.
Okay, cool. But the actual fan speed doesn't roll up into SCOM.
So the fan speeds are, I will show you some of the more of the information that we capture. The speed itself, no, but we have 2 alerts that kind of indicate fan speed is too low or too high. So it kind of tells you if you are within where it should be, fan, or if it's below where it should be.
I mean, this is anything that Prism can alert on. This is just being fed through.
That's correct, yeah.
Correct.
So this is basically coming from the Prism, and then we feed it in and attach to, you know, individual sections of the topology.
Correct, and Prism obviously is reporting on very specific things within our home, but we're not actually showing application awareness or anything of what's underneath on the load. Sorry.
We'll get there.
And we'll get there.
This is for.
But you're also not diving down. I mean, you've got temperature, which is a standard server counter via IPMI, and saying you should check the fan speeds, but fan speeds are also a standard counter through IPMI.
Right.
And
So it could be that it's not really that problem. Maybe it's the air conditioning in the server.
no, but
Could be many reasons.
my point is that the resolution here shouldn't be go to another console and look at the server and see if the fans are spinning, but you should do that for me. That data is available. There's an API
and you've got
for you
inflow
to collect
temperatures for from the front fans that tell you if the aircon is hot. Well, it's behind the hard drives, but it still tells you if the external aircon is hot or the CPU is hot. That information's available to you.
it. Right.
Sure. I mean,
Maybe,
it's a good
maybe
context,
we
actually.
kind of missed the part where the overlap between Prism and the added value of monitoring Nutanix inside of SCOM is relevant. So maybe you can focus a little bit on that to explain the overlap.
We'll definitely
explain
get
the
to that, yeah.
specific Comtrade.
Well, I mean,
value.
I think
We can probably conclude on that front.
to me this is enterprise shops who are already using SCOM.
Yep.
Prism is fantastic from a user interface point of view. It's all HTML5, but it's another user interface. So an enterprise who's already got SCOM and who's already monitoring Exchange, for example, and SQL, for example, can then correlate Nutanix hardware Prism stuff with the rest of their environment. Because otherwise you just use Prism.
My point being, if the resolution of the stuff that's being fed into SCOM isn't such that it'll either auto-remediate or extra information is available in this interface, then where's the added value of actually having that information in SCOM in the first place? Why not go to Prism?
The added value is that this is going to be in customers who don't just have Nutanix as a platform. They have
I get
multiple
that,
other.
but if the resolution of the
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
inside
It should
SCOM
push
isn't-
back into
If it's going to be a single pane of glass, it should be a single
comprehensive.
pane, and not say, "Oh, I found a problem. Go look in that other pane of glass over there."
your other single pane of glass.
Why then spend the money to have something tell you to go to another management interface? That's my whole issue.
Yeah, so basically, I haven't shown you. There is another alert that is not firing up, obviously indicating that fan is not the problem in this case, right? And this alert is, let me show this up to you.
Which just makes my point that it's yet 4 more clicks to do something. Yeah, right. So you have the data, but you're not correlating. But you're not building you're not a correlation engine. Now that might be a SCOM problem more than it's a Comtrade problem, because I will admit I haven't worked with SCOM this century.
Hasn't changed much.
You can see that.
Nice.
But you're just, that click you just made demonstrates that you recommended a resolution that said go query this data that we already have, and so it should have been correlated, and it should have said, this
a great point.
CPU is too hot, but I already know the internal fans are good. Check the AC, because I don't
It's a
have
great
that
point.
external
It's a great point.
sense.
Definitely, it's something that product can be improved upon.
Yeah, I agree.
I would agree. Yeah.
I think as we dive into the pieces a little bit more, you'll see that the benefit and the value. There's a lot of, especially around the stuff that we're going to talk about during the next use cases stuff.
Exactly, yeah. So there's a lot of added value that we are adding on top of storage and then app awareness, and we are going to get to these use cases. So basically, this is a kind of indication, right? We've seen that there's another issue with this specific server, which is also that CPU is running a bit hot, right? And there is actually a way to a simple way for you to visualize how this metric has been changing over time. So what you do is, again, on the element that is reporting the issue, what you can do is open up the so-called performance view and simply check what has been the historical changes of this specific metric, which is the CPU usage, right? And you can select this, and indeed you can see that this CPU, this box has been running hot for quite a while, right? So it's kind of easy for you to determine this has been going on for a while and understand this specific issue. So one of the things that you may also ask yourself when looking at this issue is also, which virtual machines are actually running on this box so they are making it so hot? And there's, again, a way to achieve that by looking at the virtual machines and simply look at the view and filter out the view according to the machine that is reporting this problem, and identifying the VMs that run on this host, right? So it's very easy for you to kind of determine that there are a certain set of virtual machines running on this host that are causing this load, right? And obviously, one of them is reporting an issue, and again, you can drill down into this machine, launch the so-called performance view, and check what's going on with this particular machine in terms of CPU usage, and then, again, you can confirm this one has been running 100% CPU for a long time now, right? We'll see in application awareness. Sorry?
Yeah.
It's hard to keep the CPU pegged that much with workloads.
It could be an indication that it's under-provisioned in terms of CPU resources, right? And
No, it's busy encrypting everything it can see because it's infected with Locky.
Ding, 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 winner.
But also, it's a kind of the reason for that is because you don't know what kind of workload is running on the machine, and this is where we are going to get to, right? This management pack also has capabilities.
It's right in the name there.
Well, yeah.
But it's not necessary that it would be, right? And this is what we are going to get to. Okay, so this is one way of looking at things, right? So looking at the kind of the health of these individual elements and simply see how healthy they are. Of course, this will also trigger an alert immediately when it happens, right? We are kind of retroactively looking at these metrics and figuring out it happened, but immediately when it would happen, you would receive an alert to be able to react, right? So it's not that it's kind of happening after the fact. So we also provide a hardware kind of dashboard that quickly visualizes to you how things are going on across your clusters. And this is kind of a great way for monitoring teams to have visibility across the Nutanix environment. Like you can select each cluster, and then in the bottom part of this view, you are able to see the average CPU and memory consumption across the cluster, as well as some of the top of hosts that are running in this cluster, and what is their top host in terms of CPU, memory, IOPS, and so on. And again, if you would you can quickly visualize that these hosts, one of them is kind of running particularly hot, while the other two are kind of not really under that heavy load. So it can help you again optimize the environment proactively.
Do you filter out the controller VMs in these views?
So controller VMs, this is a total CPU utilization across the whole machine, right? Across all VMs.
That's a good point. As a future version, I think that'd be interesting to be able to filter out the CVMs.
Well, especially
It's not like I can move it.
Well, no, you can't, but
Right.
or the case that you may not want to see as part of the application workload.
All right, so let's move to the next use case. So the next level is storage and data protection. Obviously, storage and data protection is an extremely important area of Nutanix. This is where the most value add is actually happening, right? Yeah. And maybe, Robert, do you want to talk a little bit about the data protection and kind of use cases that it's being used for in Nutanix?
Sure. There's a lot. We have a lot of different data protection between async DR or metro availability, which gives us different levels of DR between clusters or even between sites. For example, AWS or Azure, we have our Cloud Connect feature, which allows us essentially back up that data right now to Azure or AWS. So it's really important to understand that, and this is essentially around snapshots and essentially replicating snapshots either between clusters or between the cloud and hybrid story. And then using a management pack like this to be able to basically monitor that story across the entire environment. So.
Wonderful, yeah. So there's going to be another demo now, kind of demoing this data protection specific use case. In this case, we are going to be dealing with the domain replication failure, right? And again, we are starting our travel in a topology view just to show you what. So topology view is basically, again, trying to help SCOM administrators. You have to be aware that this tool is primarily used by the monitoring teams, and they are maybe not super familiar with how Nutanix is configured and why it's configured that way. They are responsible for monitoring it and then invoking subject matter experts to resolve specific issues that maybe they don't have sufficient knowledge about, right? So they are sharing the load, and then Nutanix experts can focus on really serious problems they need to resolve if at all. Right? So in this case, we are again visualizing both Nutanix clusters, and expanding individual cluster reveals the data protection configuration. Like in particular, in this case, what we are seeing here is the protection domains that have been configured on this specific box. Now you can configure these protection domains in several ways. This one in particular, so protection domain is actually a grouping of virtual machines that you want to protect in some way. And in this case, they are being replicated to the secondary cluster, right? So we have two clusters, alpha and beta, and this specific set of virtual machines is being replicated to the cluster in the alpha, to the alpha cluster, right? So it's that type of replication. You can also replicate to cloud, kind of being able to detect these Cloud Connect issues, and so on. So all these kind of different scenarios are monitored by the management pack and also visualized that way. And again, being able to drill down into the issue at hand, you're quickly able to realize that there's actually this replication status. So protection domain replication has failed, right? This particular problem is about failure of the replication. And then you can also switch into the state change events to kind of understand what exactly has been happening, right? In the message itself, there is an explanation why the reason for this particular issue. Now again, this is the situation where a monitoring person would go and invoke subject matter expert, who is of course not looking all the time at the probably Prism, and whenever the problem pops up, they can be immediately notified through the email system and similar. Ticket is opened up, right? So this is why people use monitoring tools.
Especially if you're leveraging the System Center suite like Service Manager, etc. You can start actually adding all that automation here along with SCOM to kind of open tickets and deal with remediation, etc.
Yeah, exactly. So basically the point being that you nicely integrate Nutanix into the company's processes, right? The way they handle such incidents and invoke then subject matter experts to work on them. Now, if you simply wanted to see specific issues that are related to data protection, you can navigate down the data protection section of the management pack, and click on this data protection alert section. So,
is it possible to put the laptop out of
Sure.
no,
There you go.
There you go. So this specific view, thank you. This specific view kind of summarizes currently the actively present issues around your data protection. So if you want to see, so how's my data protection doing today? This in SCOM can be your summary. So this, and this you should take care about, right?
I still got a question about the overlap between Prism and this management pack.
Okay.
So there's going to be overlap, right? They basically do the same thing, but they're aimed at a different audience.
This is kind of, definitely it takes information from Prism, but it also, as you will see in the last case, it will kind of extend it to give the context of the applications that are being hosted
I get that.
by.
That's all clear to me.
Okay.
What my issue is that, in my view, you're basically rewriting everything that's inside of all the logic that's inside of Prism right now to be able to present it, correlate it with everything else that's inside of SCOM.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
They're leveraging the Nutanix REST API to pull all this from.
Yeah, but inside of Prism, there's a whole lot of logic that does a whole lot of correlating, health monitoring, et cetera, which is proprietary.
Right.
That is not, I assume, something you're giving away to Comtrade.
Oh no, but they're leveraging our REST API.
Sure, but everyone can leverage it. The point is that they rewrote the logic to actually monitor a Nutanix platform. So my issue here kind of is, why should I look specifically at this, assuming the quality is going to be different than the information that is inside of Prism? Because Prism is not something you can disable or actually, ignore. That's pretty hard as well because it's kind of the core of the platform.
Yeah.
In that sense. So again, I'm kind of trying to figure out the overlap between the products, how they interact, how they intermingle, et cetera, because from an operational perspective, I get that it SCOM will show you much more than just Nutanix. But whenever I'm going to have an issue with Nutanix, my knee-jerk reaction is going to be to look at Prism and not at SCOM. Because
I agree.
Still,
integrated.
you want to have the whole scope, right? It's not only Nutanix in this case, but if I'm using SCOM, I'm using it in my complete data center, not just for Nutanix.
When you have
but for the
Microsoft
complete
shops
picture, right?
that
You don't
tend to have EAs and they have SCOM and they're using it in their environment, they're tending to look at that. I know we say Prism, but they want to look at one interface and one single pane and one application.
Yeah. And SCOM could be the tool that's used by the app ops team, whereas Prism is used by the infrastructure ops team. So it could be just segregation by team.
Yeah.
And that may be why the example you use is not the best. The first example isn't the best choice.
Yeah, that's the point, right? So the SCOM is really acting here as a single pane of glass, as we've seen in one of the first slides. And you need to have the ability to see not just the Nutanix layer, but everything together consolidated in single. And,
but I get that. But the second I know, so for instance, if your use case is I've got a badly an application that's performing badly, right?
Okay.
So an alert will show up in my SCOM. Somewhere inside of that logic, it'll pinpoint to something in the Nutanix environment. And my knee-jerk reaction is going to be to not look at SCOM anymore because I know it could be a Nutanix problem, and I'll venture out into Prism to actually investigate the problem. Right?
That's all things with SCOM because your operational team, you're going to have EMC storage, NetApp storage, Nutanix, VM backup, I don't know, anything Microsoft-y. Your application write latency to the database is going to, instead of doing 100 transactions a second, is down to 4. The app owner is going to get that alert and go, okay, why is my application slow? It's because the SQL server is slow, which will be integrated with SCOM. That is because the CPU on the Nutanix cluster is pegged at 100%. So then that operations team can know they can log a call to the Nutanix support team, who then, don't even look at SCOM. They then go into Nutanix to do it.
Yeah, it's exactly about the process,
but
optimizing
this this whole discussion, for me in my head, kind of concludes that it's almost a waste of your engineering effort of building something, building the Nutanix management pack. Instead, you should have integrated all the logic that's inside of Prism now and directly exporting it into the SCOM.
Maybe there's this basic misunderstanding here. We are not really re-implementing all the smart logic, right, in the management pack. We are reusing what Prism is giving us and feeding that and mapping that in SCOM concepts, right? So we are not reintroducing the complete calculation and logic in the management pack, rewriting basically the Prism, if you like. It's not about that. It's about feeding it into SCOM so it can be used for consolidation purposes with other management packs. And we are going to see in one of the next sessions that we are going to really focus on the bringing these various management packs in a single pane of glass.
But is it just a metrics? Is it just a metrics, or is it also all the logic that is inside of Prism right now?
So,
if I may, I think, because it's a very good question. Right, so the way how we integrate the monitoring logic from REST APIs, as Robert mentioned also before, is that doesn't mean we ignore the existing logic which is within the Nutanix itself. How we pass the logic which is there, because we not just generate alerts based on the policies within SCOM, but also we catch the correlated alerts that are within the generated within the Nutanix itself, which actually there are already defined health policies, right, within the Nutanix infrastructure, right? So this is one way of passing the logic. If you look at the Prism also, you will see it's pretty much monitoring tool and management tool based on a specific health policies, threshold and so on. So all of that information, which is not in the user interface, it is in the logic of the system, is passed here, right? So we have a direct, correlation there. On top of it, we add what is SCOM meant to be, ability to extend the infrastructure with applications and the rest of the IT infrastructure. So this is where the real added value is.
So instead of kind of replacing Prism, you're taking all the Prism information and importing that into SCOM and adding your SCOM logic to that.
Of course, I wouldn't say that Prism is a tool for Nutanix, and every infrastructure system will have a point management tool. But when you go one level higher, when you want to add additional monitoring logic, then you need to have some kind of framework, right, to correlate the data from VDI, from Citrix, from Nutanix, maybe F5, and so on. So this is, I wouldn't say, that was waste of the effort, right? But rather, the value is much higher. It's on a different level than it is within the Prism, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so this is about protection domains, right? We'll be now entering the last use case, which is really where I think something unique is happening. And this is where we are really adding value, and this is understanding virtual machines and applications running in the side of these virtual machines.
Yeah, you should all recognize that the Tech Field Day crew has a long history of being sold single panes of glass that were PAIN, not PANE. And I think the whole concept has to die. That it's not about a single pane of glass, it's about panes of glass for information consumers. And so the Microsoft admins want to consume their information through SCOM, but the virtualization admins and the infrastructure guys want to go directly to Prism because they really don't care about problems with the SMTP gateway service running within Exchange.
Sure.
And so it's not about a single pane, it's about targeted panes.
Right, but you kind of need both because you have your overarching monitoring. Something's broken. You don't know where to look.
Somebody has to first notice.
Right, somebody has to notice your NOC or your customer care center.
It doesn't matter who that first person is, or that they don't use the same tool as the other guy who'll notice the other problem first the next time.
Right, but when you're in a large organization with tons of systems, you generally have a centralized monitoring group or team.
Yeah.
Right, and that feeds your CMDB and your monitoring, your SLAs, and all those types.
Right, but that's not SCOM.
Right, it may or may not be.
It's a combination of a number of things, products.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of big companies use SCOM because it's bundled in an enterprise agreement with the whole systems center suite.
Yeah. All right, so let's take a look at this last use case. It is going to be about understanding a specific resource consumption issue on the virtual machine in the context of what app is running in it, right? So it gives you this ability to understand and prioritize the issue based on that information. So we have already seen, right, that one of the virtual machines is consuming slightly higher level of resources. Now let's add a bit more information on that, a bit of application-specific information to that. So while previous views have mostly shown information from bottom up, right? We've started with Nutanix and we were looking up to the resources being consumed and virtual machines running on those. This is using more of a top-down approach, right? So we start with the applications and then show you what virtual machines are part of those applications, right? So it gives you a top-down view into the Nutanix environment. So in this version, the Nutanix Management Pack is able to discover 3 key business applications, 3 key workloads that also Robert has introduced. For example, Citrix, right? A very popular workload in Nutanix. And what we are able to do about Citrix is discover which virtual machines are actually part of individual Citrix environment. And then also we can show you what role individual virtual machine is doing in the Citrix environment. Like in this case, you are able to see that we have discovered that there's a certain Citrix environment running on this Nutanix cluster called Beta CTX. So that's a Citrix side that has a bunch of virtual machines. And in this bottom pane, you are able to see exactly which virtual machines are part of that specific environment. And not only that, you're also able to see what role those machines are performing in this Citrix environment in question. So in this case, you're able to see that there is a Citrix this first server that is kind of having also performance issues is actually a Citrix database server. That's quite a significant information, right? Whenever you see VM having an issue, and you correlate this with, oh, it's a database for my Citrix environment, that is definitely a high priority thing you have to address, right? And invoke subject matter expert to act on it. Maybe it's a database guy together with the Citrix expert, so they look at the thing and try to resolve it, right? Then we're also able to identify other Citrix roles, such as is a machine delivery controller, is it desktop OS, server OS machine. In Citrix environment, you also have the servers that act as web front ends, and we are discovering those as well, right? So really giving you this top-down approach, what kind of apps are installed in Nutanix, and what are the virtual machines and their roles in this environment. And then on the right-hand side, of course, you're able to see again, virtual machines according to their top, resource utilization, and so on. And just to conclude this demo, we also have a kind of a master health overview dashboard that shows you everything mashed up together, right? So say you have a number of Nutanix environments deployed. There run a number of applications across all of those virtual machines. And this is a one dashboard that you can go to. It's a kind of 10,000 feet dashboard across your Nutanix deployment, giving you health of each individual sections of the Nutanix deployment. So it kind of indicates how healthy your applications are that are installed across Nutanix environment, right? We've seen we have 3 applications installed, 1 Exchange environment, 1 SQL, and 1 Citrix. And 2 of them are healthy and 1 of them is problematic, right? So this gives you immediate pointers which areas you should be focusing on. And then you can switch to individual dashboards to identify which app is impacted and in what way.
So I cannot go down from here. I cannot double-click anything and look what's going on.
Yeah, you basically, I think, the way you would do that is simply click on this dashboard here, but it's a good point, right? It's a SCOM kind of
that's a SCOM thing.
Slight quirk that, it's not easy to do.
Within SCOM, you can only develop on. But, again, this is the newer concept in SCOM of having application awareness and having that visibility to actually point it at a cluster and just see exactly what's going on there. We don't see that insight on Prism. We're just looking at IOPS and metrics and stuff of that nature.
Yeah, correct. So basically, your 10,000 feet dashboard, you can have this projected on screen, and the monitoring team can take a look at a single view and see, how well the Nutanix environment is going. So with that, I will just conclude with this last slide that is kind of pointing out the way how you can then use SCOM to deliver this visibility across the complete application stack. Right? So Nutanix Management Pack obviously is foundation of that because it takes a look at your platform. Then, of course, you have some kind of applications running on top of that, and very popular workloads are Citrix, for example. And in order to achieve visibility, and I mean detailed visibility, into the Citrix environment, you would use Citrix Management Packs. And this would give you full end-to-end single kind of view across the health of this Citrix on Nutanix stack. Then the next use case could be Exchange, SharePoint, Skype for Business workloads. Again, management packs for those Microsoft workloads are delivered by Microsoft themselves, right? And Nutanix is delivered by Comtrade, and the network security layer is, again, if you happen to use NetScaler, you can use Citrix Management Pack. If you use F5, obviously you can again come to us, and we are able to help you with that. And at the end, this is how you can bring things together in a consolidated view for the monitoring teams to be able to quickly identify where the issue is for certain application being delivered, and then activate subject matter experts to address specific issues that they potentially don't know about, enough about that they would be able to resolve them themselves.
I mean, to frame it in a use case, Exchange admin running a big IP for all his front-end web servers, and obviously in 2016 now we're single role, but understanding, what the impact of where the bottleneck is. Are we having something on the big IP? Are we having something on a front-end server? Looking at that correlation, or is there something to do with Nutanix? Are we having some kind of failure? There's a lot of particular reasons why we would look at, but having all that correlation in one, we'll say multiple panes of view in one application, absolutely is valuable. IT pros.